The wedding invitation arrived in a black velvet box. No stamp, no return address. Just my name written in gold cursive, like I was royalty. Inside was a plane ticket to Monaco. And a note from my mother. You belong with people like him. Don't embarrass us for once. That was how my family gave me away to a millionaire. Not married off, exactly. Sold felt more accurate. And the worst part? I actually got on the plane. Because after 26 years of being treated like the family disappointment, I thought maybe this was finally my chance to matter. I had no idea the man waiting for me wasn't just rich. He was dangerous. And by the time I learned the truth, it was already too late. My family worshipped money. Not in the normal work hard, be successful way. I mean, they treated wealth like religion. My older sister married a hedge fund manager in Connecticut. My brother worked private equity in Manhattan and spoke about taxes like he was solving world hunger. Even my mother divorced my dad because his tech startup only sold for $8 million. Meanwhile, I was the failure. I worked at a bookstore in Brooklyn. I rented a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that screamed all winter. I liked old movies, cheap wine, and silence. To my family, that made me defective. So when a billionaire named Damian Vale asked to meet me, my mother practically started glowing. You don't understand the opportunity here, she whispered over brunch at the plaza. Men like him don't look twice at girls like you. Girls like me. She said it smiling. Apparently, Damian had seen me at a charity event months earlier. He asked mutual connections about me. Then he invited my family to Monaco for a private gala on his yacht. The yacht looked less like a boat and more like a floating palace. White marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff members who moved like ghosts. And Damian? He was calm, controlled, beautiful in a cold, terrifying way. Dark tailored suit, silver watch, eyes that looked almost black under the lights. The kind of man who never repeated himself because nobody ever made him. When he shook my hand, he held it 1 second too long. I expected someone louder, he said. I disappoint people a lot. His mouth twitched slightly. Good. Loud people are exhausting. That should have been my first warning. But honestly, compared to my family, he felt normal. The first strange thing happened that night. I woke up around 2 a.m. because I heard screaming below deck. Not angry screaming, terrified screaming. At first I thought I imagined it, but then I heard a man begging. I cracked my cabin door open. 2 security guards dragged a bleeding man down the hallway while Damian walked behind them, calmly sipping whiskey. The man looked at Damian and cried, "Please, I can get the money." Damian interrupted him softly. You already had time. Then he noticed me standing there. Everything froze. The guards stopped moving. The bleeding man stopped talking. Damian stared at me for 3 long seconds before smiling like none of this was weird. Couldn't sleep? I should have run. Instead, I nodded like an idiot. He walked toward me slowly. No panic, no embarrassment, just complete control. "This doesn't concern you," he said quietly. "Go back inside." The bleeding man suddenly shouted, "He kills people!" One guard slammed his face into the wall so hard I heard teeth crack. Damian never even looked at him. He just kept staring at me. "Go," he repeated. So I did. And somehow that terrified me even more. Because deep down, I knew normal men didn't react like that. The next morning, nobody mentioned the incident. Not Damian, not the staff, not my family. Especially not my family. My mother was too busy admiring diamond necklaces Damian had gifted everyone at breakfast. My sister kept whispering, "You hit the jackpot." But I started noticing things. The security everywhere. The phones staff weren't allowed to carry. The fact nobody ever photographed Damian without permission. And the guests. Rich politicians, CEOs, foreign royals. Every conversation stopped slightly when Damian entered a room. Not out of respect. Fear. One afternoon, I wandered into the wrong hallway looking for the spa. That's when I saw the photographs. Hundreds of them, pinned to a wall inside a private office. Pictures of powerful people. Judges, senators, business executives. Some smiling, some crying, some covered in blood. I felt sick. Then I noticed one photo that made my stomach drop. My father, standing beside Damian, shaking hands. The timestamp said 7 years earlier, but my dad told us he'd never met Damian before. "You shouldn't be in here." I spun around. Damian stood in the doorway. No anger. That was the scary part. He looked completely calm. I pointed at the photo. "You know my father?" He closed the office door behind him. Slowly. "Yes." My chest tightened. "How?" His eyes stayed locked on mine. "Your father owed me something." "What kind of something?" Damian stepped closer. The kind people disappear over. That night, I confronted my father. At first, he denied everything. Then I mentioned the photo, and suddenly all the color drained from his face. We were standing on the yacht's upper deck, with Monaco glowing behind us like spilled gold. My father grabbed my arm, hard enough to hurt. "You need to stay away from Damian." "You told Mom he was perfect." "Because your mother doesn't know what he is." My pulse started hammering. "What is he?" My father looked around nervously before lowering his voice. "He's not just rich. Damian brokers secrets." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means governments fear him." The wind suddenly felt freezing. My father explained that years ago, he lost millions gambling with investors' money. Damian covered the losses quietly, in exchange for lifelong loyalty. "He owns people," my father whispered. "Politicians, police chiefs, CEOs. Once he has leverage on you, he never lets go." Then I asked the question that changed everything. "What does he want with me?" My father looked horrified. "You really don't know?" That's when Damian's voice appeared behind us. "She doesn't." We turned. He stood there perfectly calm, with 2 security guards behind him. My father immediately backed away. Actually backed away. Like Damian was a loaded gun. Damian looked at me. "I didn't invite you here because you're pretty." Every nerve in my body went cold. "Then why?" He studied me silently before answering. "Because your father stole something from me." I thought he meant money. I was wrong. Damian brought me into a private room beneath the yacht. Concrete walls, no windows, 1 chair. He handed me a faded photograph. A woman holding a baby. The woman looked familiar. Then I realized why. She looked exactly like me. "That's my mother?" I whispered. "No," Damian said. My stomach dropped. "That's my mother." I stared at him, then at the baby, then back at him. No way. Damian sat across from me calmly. 26 years ago, your father had an affair with my mother." The room tilted. "When she became pregnant, your father panicked. He was already married to your mother, so he paid doctors to fake records." I couldn't breathe. "You're lying." I I spent years proving it. He slid documents across the table. DNA reports, birth certificates, bank transfers. My hands shook violently. You're my half-sister. The word hit like a car crash. I almost threw up. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why he looked at me strangely, why my father was terrified, why my family pushed me toward him without hesitation. They didn't know. None of them knew. But Damian did. And then he delivered the real bomb. I invited your family here because I wanted revenge. Cold panic spread through my chest. What kind of revenge? His expression never changed. The permanent kind. Right then, alarms started blaring across the yacht. Men shouted outside. Gunfire exploded somewhere above us. Damian barely reacted. One guard rushed into the room. Sir, Interpol boarded the lower deck. Chaos erupted instantly. Damian grabbed my wrist. Come with me. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice anymore. Another explosion shook the yacht. The lights flickered red. People screamed upstairs. And somehow, Damian still looked completely calm. We escaped through a hidden tunnel beneath the marina. Rain poured down in violent sheets, while Monaco descended into chaos behind us. I finally ripped my arm free. You used me! Damian stopped walking. For the first time, I saw genuine emotion in his eyes. Not anger. Regret. I tried not to. I laughed bitterly. You invited your own sister onto a yacht to destroy her family? No, he said quietly. I invited you to save you. Before I could respond, headlights flooded the alley. Black SUVs surrounded us instantly. Men with rifles stepped out. But they weren't police. My father emerged from one of the vehicles, bleeding, terrified, and holding a gun. That's when I realized the truth. He wasn't running from Damian. Damian was running from him. My father pointed the gun directly at me. You should have stayed out of this. I froze. What are you doing? His hands trembled violently. Then Damian stepped in front of me, and my father screamed something I'll never forget. She was never yours to protect. Silence. Rain hammered the pavement. Then my father finally broke. 26 years ago, Damian's mother discovered a financial operation involving offshore laundering, political bribes, and murders. So my father killed her and framed it as an overdose. But there was one witness, a little boy hiding in the hallway, Damian. Everything he built afterward, every billion, every secret, every terrifying connection, came from one obsession. Revenge. Not power. Not money. Revenge. Then my father looked at me with empty eyes and whispered the final truth. You weren't an accident. My blood turned cold. He smiled weakly. We had you because Damian's mother wanted a daughter. I couldn't move, couldn't think. And then he pulled the trigger. But the bullet didn't hit me. It hit Damian. My half-brother collapsed into the rain while gunshots erupted everywhere. The last thing he did before falling was grab my hand and whisper, I burned the world down for you. Then his grip loosened. And the man my family thought was a monster died smiling at me, while Monaco burned behind us. Sirens swallowed the streets within seconds. My father tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Damian's men opened fire. He dropped face first into the rain, dead before he hit the pavement. Everything after that happened insanely fast. Interpol stormed the marina. Black SUVs screeched away into the night. The yacht exploded behind us in a tower of orange fire that lit up the entire Monaco harbor. And Damian was bleeding out in my arms. I kept screaming for help, pressing my hands against the wound, but he just looked strangely peaceful, like he'd finally finished something he started decades ago. Then he whispered one last thing. "There's a file hidden under your name." I frowned. What file? But his eyes had already gone still. Gone. Just like that. 3 days later, I learned what he meant. A lawyer in Zurich contacted me privately. Damian had transferred everything to me before the raid. Not millions. Everything. Private accounts, properties, companies, offshore holdings. Over $11 billion. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the final video attached to the inheritance file. It was timestamped 2 hours before the yacht attack. Damian sat alone in a dark room, staring directly into the camera. "If you're watching this," he said calmly, "I'm dead." My chest tightened instantly. Then he smiled slightly. "But your father wasn't the one who killed my mother." I stopped breathing. Damian leaned closer to the camera. "It was yours. My mother, the woman who shoved me onto that yacht, was the one who murdered his mother. And according to Damian's evidence, she planned to kill me too." The video ended with a final sentence typed across the screen. "Don't go home. She knows you know."